The preseason is done, regular season around the corner, but we got a hurricane on Wednesday. What do I need to know for my first hurricane, you guys?
You're the weather guy.
Yeah. It'll be wind and rain.
Okay. Should I get snacks?
Yes, snacks, and make sure you have coffee.
Okay. John?
Get booze.
Should have known. Welcome into Jags A.M. presented by CarShield. We're here in the Hyundai Studios of Kainani Stevens, Brian Sexton, John Oehser. A sober Sally this morning. Of course, you've got your coffee, but we will have our booze for the hurricane. That is a good recommendation. I do appreciate that.
Oh, I think most people around here,
they're already stocked up.
Yeah, they know that like from day one. As soon as you turn, I guess, 21.
Yeah, I was listening on the way in and heard my buddy Mike Burrish talking about it. And he said it's that rare storm that comes up out of the Caribbean that's going to kind of bend to the east, and it looks like it's going to come over us, during the day on Wednesday, and probably still have some hurricane force winds. I'm no meteorologist, but you kind of learn to be one when you live in Florida. So listen to Burrish. That's the best advice I can give you.
All right, I appreciate that. Start with our big things. The preseason is behind us. Finally, we got that fast start we've been talking about. Doug Peterson is saying he wants to get that fast start from the offense. And other than a little hiccup from Tank, pretty good out of the gate. Is that what you were hoping to see?
It was. Press Taylor said last week, and then was followed up with the coach and the quarterback, where they talked about clean, clean, clean. And man, did it look clean for the first 11 plays, John. And they mixed in the pass and the run beautifully. That was a picture-perfect drive until Bixby was a little careless with the football.
Yeah, and I thought it was exactly what you wanted, and I don't worry about preseason fumbles. I don't think Tank's going to be a fumbler. It struck me, and it's hard to put into words, but yes, they were clean, but they played with this energy and with this confidence like they expected to do what they did, and what they wanted to do is, I hate the phrase send a message, but that felt like they were sort of sending a message of this is what we are. And I wish I had a better way to put it than that, but there was an energy to it, there was an aggressiveness to it, and there was a confidence that every play was going to work. And it was I don't get excited about preseason, but sometimes teams start to look like they're going to be something. That looked like what this team wants to be, and it was impressive to see them do that in that final warm-up. So many times we've talked on these shows for years and years and years about what you might see. I think they gave the Jaguars fans an inkling of what they're going to be this year.
Well, and that's really the point is what they are looked good. Mm-hmm. And that's before they've had a lot of time. I mean, think about where they could be in November. The production crew that does our television preseason broadcast is from St. Louis. Mm-hmm. And a lot of those guys used to work around the Rams. And in 1999, they were telling us after the game, they could see the greatest show on turf starting to evolve. And of course, it exploded pretty early in the season. It became something special. And no one was anticipating it, because remember, Kurt Warner was the third-team quarterback who had to take over for the injured Trent Green, and it just sort of evolved into what it became. I get the sense that we could see something that's going to have a lot of people going, whoa, where did that come from?
One of the things for me is, specifically, I've talked about it in practice, Trevor seems to be not going to Doug as much obviously for, counsel and discussing things, but not on how to run things. And when you see him running an offense now, it looks a little bit more like he's in control of everything that's going on, which is what you want to see out of your quarterback. I think he missed that, was that third down pass to Zay Jones, and then they went for it on fourth down, and that was kind of like him being like, all right, I got this, and kind of going with it that way. And that's something, when you have a young quarterback, you love to see that.
He said on Thursday when we met before the game that he has a strong confidence in his command of what they're asking him to do, because they have a great line of communication between Mike McCoy, Press Taylor, and Doug Peterson. They're all on the same page, and he feels comfortable with it, which, John, is exactly what you expect one of those elite guys to be able to do, even in their third season.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Trevor so much. I think what impressed me the most on Saturday was it looks like the run is going to be there for them much more. I'm not going to say we didn't anticipate them being a good running team. I don't know if we expected to see ETN look quite that good. quite that confident, quite that strong. As Doug said, they were blocking. The offensive line was playing on the other side of the line of scrimmage. And then when you add Bigsby to that, it just feels like there's an element with this running game. We've all talked about it, but almost as an aside and almost like, yeah, it could be good. I think the running game, it's not going to get the opportunity to be what the 2007 team was. I'm not going to compare it to that because that was a team that ran its way to an 12-4 record.
Yeah, 11-5, and they had 156 yards a game rushing.
So this is a different style team. But these two backs,
you see that early on the game the other night.
And I hate to even not mention Dearness because he looks really, really good. But those first two, it's going to be interesting to see how Doug and Press want to call these games because I think they're going to try to figure out a way best as possible to use this run to set it up. And it's different now.
By the way,
it's a different looking offense.
I think Dearness is past Hasty, and they like Hasty.
Yeah.
But that tells you how much they like Dearness Johnson.
Let's go into big thing number 2 because it's going to be about who makes the cut. We're going to talk specifically about players that we have, either that may have been on the bubble that we think will get in or maybe the first guy out later. But just in general, I wanted to talk about this team because I know you guys have been around for a while. This has to be one of the teams that has retained the most players and probably the least amount of spots available from year to year, maybe just from last year. Because I think when we talked to Doug, he said, maybe 5-ish.
Yeah. Well, generally in a season, you'll see the roster turnover, not necessarily starters, John, but the roster, about a third of the roster on a yearly basis will turn over. And that's among teams at the bottom. At the top, it's a little bit less than that. There weren't that many jobs available because they retained everybody from last year. If not everybody, right? Arden Key didn't come back. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of those guys. But for the most part, this is a roster that comes back from last year with just a few jobs open.
Yeah, I still think you're going to find 8, 9, 10 rookies just because they're going to keep these guys on the team. And you always have a little roster churn just because at the bottom of the roster, your contracts run out and you've got guys that are going to replace. One thing I was thinking this weekend about, I'm not trying to shortchange the receivers on this. We talk about how deep the receivers are. And they are deep. One reason I think they look deep is a lot of times they're catching passes from a real good quarterback now. So the whole thing looks better. So guys are performing better in it. Does that make sense? What I'm getting at? I mean, it's
he lifts them.
I think there were guys in the past who fans have dismissed and were off the team quickly, who may have looked good in what's going on now because you're a part of something that's functioning very highly. So that was just Manning. A little thought. Yeah, I mean,
there's Manning with the offensive line. He'd lose an offensive lineman or two even and still play. I remember him making Charlie Jones, who was a left tackle for them. I think it was 2008, maybe 2009. And I'm thinking, well, here's an advantage for the Jaguars to take advantage of. Mm-hmm. They couldn't touch it because Manning was so good.
Our last big thing of the day is going to be Precedent because Saturday's game was cut short after an injury to Dolphins player that both coaches and player reps came in and decided they didn't want to finish out the game. I think there's 8.5 and change, 8 and change left in the fourth quarter, and that's the second preseason game this year that's been called early. The Packers and Patriots called their game after a similar injury to one of the Patriots players. And just, Brian, I know you feel very strongly about this, just the precedent that it sets without anything written down about what they're going to do in a situation like this.
Well, I have 2 questions. And look, I have lots of questions. And I've been thinking about this, and you and I talked about it last week a little bit. And we elected not to make it an issue because it didn't have enough local at this point. But, John, would they have canceled that game if it had happened in the first quarter?
Probably not.
Okay. So what's the difference between the first and the fourth and how the players feel? Because that was what both Doug and Mike McDaniel cited was the way that the players were reacting, and they were concerned for their players. And then the second question is, would they cancel it on opening day?
No.
Okay, so then what's the difference between players' feelings?
It's preseason.
Well, okay,
but difference.
But they didn't cite that. That was the thing. They cited the fact that they were worried about their players and how their players felt.
Well,
and what I'm saying is that can't be the criteria. There has to be a plan for how this goes forward. Mm-hmm. Not just 2 coaches, 2 players, and the official making the decision.
Well, I do think it's unrealistic to think that you look at preseason games through a different lens anyway.
I get that to a degree,
but
this is still precedent.
No, I don't think they would stop this game during the regular season, mainly because he had movement in his extremities and he was conscious.
They stopped it on January 2nd on Monday Night Football for Damar Hamlin.
That was a significantly scarier. But
you get what I'm saying, though. There's got to be some
yes, there
sort
does
of
have to be precedent
of a delineation here on how you're going to do it. Because a couple of things. You've got customers who buy your tickets, fill your parking lot, your beer, your hot dogs, your sodas, right? You've got television partners who have customers who buy the advertisements that pay the fee. And now gambling's involved in this as well. And so if you're canceling games, and you're not gambling on preseason, I'm assuming that we're talking about the regular season here. I guess what I'm saying is I'd like to see the commissioner who represents the owners and the Players Association who represents the players and the networks because they're a full partner in this. And then gambling is too now. I mean, the league they're in those waters.
I don't know if you can put gambling into this because there's a million things that affect gambling.
Well, okay. But you have to understand when you're taking the money from them now.
Oh, well, that's a whole other
Well,
discussion.
they're partners.
Right, but they chose to get into bed with gambling.
But they chose to get
affect.
which is why you have to at least consider it. And what I'm saying is there needs to be a criteria of what and how. If it's life-threatening, Damar Hamlin was dead, they resuscitated him, okay, that's the criteria. But I'll give you the great example. And Darryl Stingley, Mike Utley, Dennis Byrd, Ryan Shazier, 4 players from 1978, a preseason game, to December of 2017, who were all to some degree paralyzed, okay? And then there's Joe Theismann, which is probably the most gruesome injury I've ever seen. You were a Redskins fan. I know you probably think the same way. On Monday Night Football in 1985, they all went back and played, all right? But if you're saying this is absolutely one where we cancel, but what about this? Because that injury, I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it was a complex compound fracture where the leg did this. And it was hard to watch then, and it's hard to watch now. And if players are going to be disturbed by the neck, they're going to be disturbed by that. I just want there to be some clarification. I'm going to speak at noon. I spoke yesterday, and I was asked the question, and I couldn't give the answer. They said, would they cancel it in the regular season? And I could only say, I don't think so. So I would like to see if you're going to cancel games, which I think is dangerous to do for all kinds of reasons. I'd just like to see somebody say, here's the rules.
I think
my guess
fair.
is what they'll do is they'll have a hard, fast rule during regular season and probably, I see your point. I would think they would get very close to we're just not stopping during the regular season. And then during the preseason saying it can be a coach's decision, much like was made. But I think these 2 back-to-back incidences, the tone has clearly changed. The mood has clearly changed. So I think you're right. I think there does have to be
I had a woman to me say
conversation
yesterday,
in the league office.
I don't want my son to play football. Changed my mind. Based on the last 2 Saturday nights, she goes, if they're canceling games, then it must not be safe. Well, look, the game has never been safer. I coached youth football for 10 years, and I had to get certified by USA Football, which is run by some former NFL types like Bill Polian, and it's taught heads up. There's a story this morning in The Athletic about, I think it's VICIS. I don't know whether it's pronounced vicious or vicious, but position-specific helmets. And I know the guys at Rydell and the things that they're doing. Player safety has never been more at the forefront, and I think that it should be, right? But you still have to take into account the business side of this. And remember all the consternation about it. They had to play the Bills and the Chiefs in Atlanta in the AFC Championship game because they canceled the Bills-Bengals game. I mean, you just have to have a set of criteria that everyone understands.
And I think that that's what eventually will happen. I don't know if it's this year or whenever they have player meetings next.
But here's the thing. Peter King's Monday Football Morning in America column is the most prominent column. It's a must-read for most people in the NFL. Last week, he wrote extensively about the decision in the Packers-Patriots game. This morning, not one word was written in this column about what happened on this field. So are we now just saying, well, that's normal, that's what we do? Or are we saying, well, that's what we do in the preseason? Again, some clarification is really important for the league going forward.
My guess is what'll happen, and this may sound cold, but I think what they'll eventually come to, the Player Association and the league office will get together and they will say, we're not stopping any more games.
Right.
And it's not a matter of coldness. It's more a matter of we've looked at this, we understand. And in the preseason, I think that fine. In the regular season, my guess is they will look at it and say, the players will have to weigh in and say, we understand the risk involved. We're okay with moving forward no matter what.
They do that when they sign their contract.
Right.
But let's understand, though, this is a game that is the most viewed game in America because there is risk. People don't watch basketball like they watch the NFL, right? And think about this. College football drives that entire scene, and the NCAA tournament is one of the great sporting events every year, but it's all college football that drives it. Football drives television revenue, which creates salary opportunities for coaches and players. So there's risk associated with it, and if you take the risk out of the game, it's not nearly as popular. So you got to take all those into account when you're looking at the big picture here. And what I'm saying is it's not my game, so you all decide what you want to do, but just clarify it. Make it simple so that everybody knows.
I think we'll get there eventually. Obviously, the decision is still up to the coaches and the players at this point. At least it was on Saturday, and they made that decision for themselves.
It's up to the owners now. The owners have to weigh in on this.
When they do, we will then know. Coming up, we're going to do highlights from Saturday's game, and then we will also talk about who's going to make this 53-man roster.
Jaguars fans, huddle up for the best defense against expensive car repairs, CarShield. Score big with the nation's #1 automotive protection company, CarShield. They offer affordable plans that cover over 6,000 parts and systems in your car, truck, or SUV. Don't miss any Jaguars action this season with a car breakdown. Call the MVPs at CarShield for their best coverage ever. Call 800-471-1223. 800-471-1223. Go Jags!
The 2023 season is awesome. Introducing the Four-Legged Fan Club, the Jaguars' official fan club for pets. Presented by Forever Vets Animal Hospital, your furry friend can access exclusive merchandise, events, and sweepstakes throughout the season. Fan club members will be automatically entered to win the Pet of the Game sweepstakes with 2 Jags tickets and sideline passes for pet owners and a chance for your pet to be featured on the video boards as Pet of the Game. Visit jaguars.com/promotions/Four-Legged Fan Club to sign up.
Since 2014, there's been only one official home builder of the Jaguars, Dreamfinders Homes. With quality-built homes and a speedy move-in process, we're in 20-plus communities in the best locations across Northeast Florida. Dreamfinders Homes is everywhere you want to live. So get off the sidelines, Jags fans, and get into the game. Let Dreamfinders help you navigate your home purchase and offer great interest rates. Visit DreamfindersHomes.com for all your move-in ready homes and step up your game.
Welcome back to Jags A.M. You can sign up your furry friend for the Jaguars' official Four-Legged Fan Club for pets presented by Forever Vets Animal Hospital. Your pet will receive access to exclusive merchandise, events, and sweepstakes throughout the 2023 season. Visit jaguars.com/promotions/Four-Legged Fan Club to sign up. All right, let's get to some of the highlights. Obviously, this was the final preseason game, so we did get to see the starters for a good chunk of time, and obviously we talked about that first drive, but I was most impressed with Trevor using different targets, right? We talk about Calvin Ridley all the time. Obviously, he was involved in this thing, but he's using the tight ends. John, you were talking about the running game really coming through, and I think when you have all these weapons at your disposal, more than just the wide receivers, which we talk about a lot, that makes your offense a little bit more dynamic.
Yeah, you better get this team in some bad down and distances because it's a team right now that, with all these weapons, if they're in 1st and 10, 2nd and 6, which is obviously what you want to do, if they're on schedule, they're going to be really dangerous. And again, there's Tank's fumble. I don't expect that to be a long-term issue. I actually got an email, Brian, from somebody saying, why did they run Tank outside when he's a power runner who runs up the middle? Well, you're not just going to run Tank over the middle with like straight handoffs. Teams will figure that out. Look, they're going to be dynamic. I think what's really scary about this offense is when Bigsby's in the game or ETN's in the game, ETN doesn't mean pass around here.
Right.
ETN runs hard for his size.
Well, he ran with his shoulders square to the line of scrimmage. Hey, how about this? When we talked to the coaches about Luke Farrell, they talked about how he was potentially a better blocking tight end than Chris Manhurts, who was here the last 2 years. But you saw him on that first drive. catch 2 balls for first downs. When Luke Farrell is involved in the passing game, that tells you how deep you are.
Doug's going to have a lot of fun with that tight end room for sure. And then Tank Bigsby, he's a rookie. That's a learning mistake. I think we have all the confidence in the world he's going to learn from that one.
Learn to hold on to the ball.
Yes. He might do old school, have to carry the ball everywhere he goes.
Bucky Brooks said it the other night, guys are coming hard after the ball, and they might not do that in college football.
They might not, or might not be used to it.
Yep.
One of the other things I think, obviously the maybe highlight of the night was Calvin's catch, and that's just a tiny little flash of what we're going to be able to see from him. That toe dragging catch that at first look maybe not in bounds, and then you take them.
That's a special player doing something that most human beings can't do.
The line judge was right there, and he waved his hands immediately. You can see him right here watching. No catch.
It's wild on the replay.
Calvin knew immediately, though.
Yeah.
I mean, it's impressive. The guys know. He knew what he had done. He felt it. It's impressive. He's going to even beyond that, though, the first play of the game showed what Ridley's going to be for this offense. Easy 12-yard completion.
Immediate
because
first
down. The opponent knew what he could do if they played press on him. He changes a lot for this offense.
I do want to mention the defense a little bit because we saw the starters on defense, and obviously Tyreek Hill did Tyreek Hill things on the very first play, and you're like, oh no, is this going to be a long day, or at least a long first quarter? And they had a nice little come together moment at the goal line. I won't call it a full goal line stand, but they got their job done there. And Roy Robertson Harris had that tackle at one point. I think that's the next play after this, where he kind of just comes in and is close to clotheslining anybody and pulls him back around as just a large man that he is.
He's got such a large frame, and he is so good inside, and most people miss the everyday, every play things that he does because it's overshadowed by what's going on around him, but he is a really good player.
Yeah. He's a huge anchor in that line
I said last week, if these teams play 60 minutes, the Dolphins are going to make plays. There's no defense in the NFL that's going to consistently keep Tyreek Hill from having a play or two. I thought it was impressive what the Jaguars did. They made sure that the big plays didn't turn into touchdowns. I think that's what this defense is going to need to be. They're going to give up touchdowns. They're going to give up big plays. But in big moments, which for preseason, this was a big moment. And they got the stop, held them to a field goal. I think that's what this defense, at the end of the year, if they do those kind of things, the offense is going to be so explosive that that's going to be enough from this defense.
You know, people generally deride a defense that is described as bend but don't break, but that's what that is, right? I mean, that is just it's waiting, being patient, making them make mistakes, and not giving up touchdowns and giving up field goals perhaps instead. But that's bend but don't break it. It worked for the Jaguars there. And with an offense like the one that he is here in 2023, you can deal with that. You can win with that.
And they're also, taking advantage of opportunities in terms of turnovers. And we saw two of the young guys get interceptions in this game. And Yasir Abdullah and Hallett, who's been struggling with that injury a little bit in camp, I think. But Flash there, another toe dragger on the sideline, as Bucky, I think, said. Because that's what you need as well, right? Yeah, bend, don't break, and then maybe get us an extra possession here and there. And then more than likely not, Trevor Lawrence is going to get you points out of it. So when you see some stuff like that, and even Abdullah, who's probably not going to have, I wouldn't think of as an interception person, but when you throw the ball right to him, he's going to get a pick. But this one was athletic right in front of the sideline. I think just any time you can create turnovers, obviously that's beneficial to your team.
Well, that's what this defense was last year. And you talk about bend but don't break. They were opportunistic, and you sense that this is going to be a team that if they play 17 games, they usually will be able to get a lead with this offense. I hate to assume things, but the percentage chances look like this is going to be a team that can get leads. Once you're a team that gets leads, then you get a couple of picks and you end the game quickly. That's their formula for being really good if they can play to it.
By the way, because they were sort of bend but don't break last year, and we saw that in this game last Saturday night, doesn't mean that with the talent that they have, they can't flip the script and be one of those attacking, go make your own play defenses, right? I mean, if Josh Allen and Trayvon Walker create the pressure, if you get Devon Hamilton back and Foley and they can control the line of scrimmage, if Tyson Campbell has the kind of season, and the safeties too, right, have the kind of seasons that they're capable of, I mean, they can play the other style too. Mm-hmm. But if the bend but don't break is their backup, it works pretty good.
It's amazing how many picks and sacks you start getting when you're ahead 10-0 early in the second quarter.
Absolutely.
And teams feel pressured to throw when they don't want to throw.
7 interceptions. I forget, 8 or 9 sacks in the preseason. So pretty productive.
Let's hope we see that positive change for the defense. If not, we talked about that last wide receiver spot, and there was about maybe 4 names. I think after Saturday's probably 3 names: Tim Jones, Seth Williams, and Elijah Cooks, because they all made plays in this game. And I know it's going to come down to special teams, but has either of yours decisions changed? Or
I'll save that because that's something I think we're talking about later on.
And I'll say I think Tim Jones probably solidified it. And he was the best of the special teamers, but I think some of the catches that he made, the way he played the last 2 preseason games, I don't see that there's any way you take him out of the equation. And they like him a lot.
And I think there's some factor of knowing a system that they appreciate, especially seeing how everyone else has really excelled in the second year with Doug Peterson. He has been here, so he knows things. Yeah. That does it for our highlights from Saturday's game. Coming up, we're going to talk about these roster cuts coming on Tuesday, who we think will make it, who might be the first guy out. We'll have more on that coming up after the break.
Jaguars fans, huddle up for the best defense against expensive car repairs, CarShield. Score big with the nation's #1 automotive protection company, CarShield. They offer affordable plans that cover over 6,000 parts and systems in your car, truck, or SUV. Don't miss any Jaguars action this season with a car breakdown. Call the MVPs at CarShield for the best coverage ever. Call 800-471-1223. 800-471-1223. Go Jags!
Frank Frangie here. When you want barbecue in Jacksonville, you want Bono's Pit Barbecue. You can find Bono's locations all around town and on game day at Everbank Stadium, because Bono's is the official barbecue of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Over 70 years of authentic Southern Pit Barbecue. We are the local barbecue joint in BBQval for generations of people in Jacksonville. Go to bonosbarbq.com to learn more, or call 904-880-8310 today. And remember, if you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Your hometown gate now has more ways to save. Introducing My Gate Rewards, a new loyalty program with member-exclusive savings and fuel discounts. Earn points on in-store purchases, take advantage of special offers, and save on products you love. Score free coffee, fountain drinks, pizza, and soft serve with Gates frequent shopper clubs. Then use your points on savings at the pump. Download the My Gate Rewards app in the App Store today, or ask a store associate for more information. Go from good to Gate.
Move the freight, move the freight. Magellan Transport was voted the coolest office space in Jacksonville. You can apply online at www.magellanlogistics.com. Welcome back to our Monday edition of Jags A.M. We are one day before cut day, and we're going to do our final edition of the 53, but we're going to do a little bit of addition to that in the sense of who's had a great training camp, great preseason, really solidified themselves as being one of the 53 final roster, and then who is someone that is going to be on the outside looking in at the end of the day on Tuesday.
All right, so my 53rd is Garrett Prince, and not because he had a tremendous impact on the field in preseason games, but because I know they like him a lot, and they might not have used him in the way that they intend to use him. A talented guy, had a great offseason, and so I think he makes this team. And the guy that I think is just off is Christian Braswell. I think they wanted to give him an opportunity, and they did, to really compete to be the backup nickel cornerback. But in the Dallas game, he had back-to-back penalties for illegal contact. One that was a critical play in the sense that it would have been in the regular season, where it was a first down off of a third down, right? He did the same thing the other night. So that's a technique issue for a young player who's having to learn how to play in the National Football League. So I think he's a practice squad guy for sure, because they like him, and he's a guy that they have a plan for. So I say Prince makes it as 53, and Braswell's that first guy that they can bring back up at some point when he's ready.
Yeah, you could be right.
I think they like him a lot. I know Doug
I think they may
him.
be scared to let Braswell out there because they really like his skill set, and they know teams saw it. I get it. I mean, it. Again, you could be right. There's something about Braswell that makes me think they could be scared to do that, but you got to make decisions. Right? Yeah, you got to make decisions. So let's flash mine up because I'm drawing a blank on what I chose.
How did I know you were going to forget?
Well, yeah, I went with Caleb Johnson because of something that to make it. Because because Heath Farwell, special teams coach last week, I referred to him as a 4-core player.
Yep.
So I'd be a little surprised if he's not on the team. And he's one of those guys that when you're doing a 53, media and fans sometimes overlook because they don't quite see, okay, this is a guy who can play special teams, and they trust him at linebacker if there are injuries. So I don't know this one for sure. That's what it feels like. I think Tim Jones, to your point earlier, I originally had Tim Jones in this spot just to make the case that, boy, I don't quite know what they're doing at receiver, but I'd be surprised at this point if it's not Tim Jones based on the trust they had in him last year and the fact that they have seen him over the course of time. Trust is so much with coaches in terms of when they're making those decisions.
Jones is a 4-core special teams player. Wingard is a 4-core special teams player. Those guys you don't let go,
especially when they've done things that you like as reserves.
And
so,
they'll try like hell to get those big receivers onto the practice squad.
Yeah.
The question is whether you can get them back or not. But those guys, Jones in particular, is a tremendous special teamer.
And then Nathan Rourke, my gut says he's not on the 53, but
does someone grab him? Did he flash enough, or is this someone that's going to be on the practice squad?
There is a tendency, and we've talked about it. You see your own players, meaning the guys that we all watch, and think, "Wow." Does the rest of the league see Nathan Rourke and say, "I've got to have that at the expense of something else that I've been working with"? Is he that much better than the guys that are on other rosters? It's a risk, and at the same time, if Trevor ain't playing, it doesn't matter anyway. So I think he gets released and maybe picked up by somebody else. But there's great storylines. I wish I had a better answer. I just don't know with Nathan Rourke.
Well, and I don't know what the backup situation is like on the other 31 teams. Has someone been hurt this preseason, and is someone desperate for a guy with an arm like this guy has and the moxie that he has in the pocket? Because he's a tough kid. And they say, that's better than any other guy I could get it. Even though he might not be ready to be a 2, I'm better with him than someone else. I can't say that. I don't know all the other situations, but that could happen.
And it could be a later in the year thing because, as we know, quarterbacks go down and injuries come up.
He'll be on someone's roster, if not as a 2, as that 3rd.
For my 53, I went running backs because we've seen Dearness Johnson really solidify himself. I know, John, you just mentioned he probably up to 3 out of the 4 that they're going to keep, including JaMychal Hasty. And Snoop Connors unfortunately worked his way out here. But you have to be happy with the running back room that you do have because, as you mentioned, those first 2 backs are really lighting it up. And then to think Dearness is your 3rd, he scored in Saturday's game as well. It's getting an embarrassment of riches on offense all around.
Well, Brian, they've had great running back rooms around here, so I'm not going to say
Certainly.
this is the best one because when you've had one that includes MJD and Fred.
From 1 to 3 or potentially 4?
It's great. Yeah, well, and again, there was... Whenever you have MJD and Fred in the same backfield.
Well, in 98, they had 2 first-round picks, Fred Taylor and James Stewart, and a 3rd-round pick in Tavian Banks, who was electric before he got hurt.
Yeah, that could have been the best. But this is when you're putting a group in those conversations around here, because it's been a running back team more than it's been a quarterback team historically. I usually don't get excited about watching running backs, but I'm excited to watch these guys.
Says a lot.
I think Tank and Travis Etienne are going to do special things. Maybe have a nickname at some point, Kai.
Ooh, we love a nickname. All right, coming up, we'll preview what's coming up the rest of the week. The cuts tomorrow, and we'll tell you what's happening.
Jaguars fans, huddle up for the best defense against expensive car repairs, CarShield. Score big with the nation's #1 automotive protection company, CarShield. They offer affordable plans that cover over 6,000 parts and systems in your car, truck, or SUV. Don't miss any Jaguars action this season with a car breakdown. Call the MVPs at CarShield for their best coverage ever. Call 800-471-1223. 800-471-1223. Go Jags!
Since 2014, there's been only one official home builder of the Jaguars, Dreamfinders Homes. With quality-built homes and a speedy move-in process, we're in 20-plus communities in the best locations across Northeast Florida. Dreamfinders Homes is everywhere you want to live. So get off the sidelines, Jags fans, and get into the game. Let Dreamfinders help you navigate your home purchase and offer great interest rates. Visit DreamfindersHomes.com for all your move-in ready homes and step up your game.
The 2023 season is Possum. Introducing the Four-Legged Fan Club, the Jaguars official fan club for pets. Presented by Forever Vets Animal Hospital, your furry friend can access exclusive merchandise, events, and sweepstakes throughout the season. Fan club members will be automatically entered to win the Pet of the Game sweepstakes with 2 Jags tickets and sideline passes for pet owners and a chance for your pet to be featured on the video boards as Pet of the Game. Visit jaguars.com/promotions/Four-Legged Fan Club to sign up.
Jags fans, if you want customized Jaguars furniture for your home, check out zipchair.com to browse all customizable options. ZipChair is furniture for fans. Jags A.M. presented by CarShield today, our only Jags A.M. of this week, because we are not going to have a show on Wednesday or Thursday. We will be back on Monday.
I'm going to miss you guys.
Oh, no, you're going to be happy to be away from us. You've seen us every day for like a month straight. He's lying to you. And then we'll be back on Monday and regular season schedule.
Yeah,
so
here we go.
Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. Let's do it. I just want to detail the schedule for some people. The cuts are at 4:30. They have to be in by 4:30 on Tuesday. And then, Brian, can you explain kind of the waiver wire?
Well, it's different this year because it's one cut, not two. So the market's going to be flooded with 1,100 players who are going to be available. So teams can't start claiming players until 4:30 on Wednesday, right? It's not instant like it has been in the past. There's a 24-hour period there for them to be able to figure things out. So they've kind of slow played it this way so the teams can make it work. And then I think they have until 4:30 on Thursday, I think, practice squad, right? So it's a little bit different because all the teams are cutting everybody at the same time.
And then we'll hear from Doug and Trent on Wednesday. As of now, per hurricane. We'll see when we actually end up talking to them. But any surprises we're going to see, John? Or you think it'll be pretty straightforward?
I'm terrible at surprises because
you don't enjoy them.
Well, I'm fine with them as long as they benefit me, but I don't ever really know what people are expecting, and then we get so close to the roster that it's not surprising anymore. I don't think there'll be any big names, David Garrard getting released at lunch kind of plays.
Well, you're bringing up an old memory there.
So I don't think there'll be any shockers like that.
No.
I do expect there will be those of us and those of the fans who have dug deep and sort of locked in on some guys. I think there'll be some, in the old days, what I would have called page 3 stories.
No surprises.
Let's hope for no big surprises. As for that, we'll be back with you for Jags A.M. on Monday. Until then, have a great week. Be safe, and we'll see you soon.